Hey, team, this is George. Appreciate all the effort that you're putting on for our discussions and your assignments and everything else. I want to jump in, and this is a crazy case we're looking at with Daniel and his restaurant. And so I want to jump in and kind of show you how I would question my way through it. Not saying this is the perfect way to do it or the right way or anything else, but this is one way that I like to grab context and make knowledge contextual because the questions that we ask are far more important and they show our wisdom slash intelligence more than the knowledge we possess because our knowledge is contextual. So we need to ask the questions to put our knowledge to work in the right context. And in this case, it's for Daniel and his restaurant. So what's the first thing we know? It was successful for 2 years. He had a very successful business and it was very promising. So uh, other franchises are successful as well. Something changed. What did it? What questions can we ask to find out more? When did the business start becoming less profitable? We can find all that out. This is where we can do our work. So we're going to find out the time when it started becoming less profitable or going downhill, as some might say. Did more competition come in? Uh, were there environmental changes? In other words, did the customer base change? Did the something move away? Was there a large business that left, and so it gave them a smaller customer base? And the environment, was it something? Did a big recession come up? Was it a recession and disposable income went away? If that was the case, a lot of restaurants and things around there would be in sort of the same spot that Daniel's in. So we need to ask those questions and find that out to get the very contextual stuff. We also know that for those 2 years that it was profitable, uh, good employee retention, things like that. People enjoyed being there. And when you enjoy being somewhere, you show it. When you don't enjoy being somewhere, you show it. No, we may not do it consciously, but it does uh, come out very readily. So think about that from a perspective of questioning. What has changed? Did something change with Daniel? Did he go through a personal issue slash struggle? He could have lost a spouse, something like that. We just don't know. So we need to find out what changed and look from that perspective. And are the consequences right side up? Daniel's always complaining about the training not being good enough. And we're going to get into that in a minute. But is there a positive consequence for going to training? Are there positive consequences for treating customers well? Are there positive consequences for doing a good job? Not so much. They have competitions for sales, competition for things, or to win a competition, you can have a free meal, stuff like that. So that's not really putting the consequences right side up. We want to celebrate our successes. One thing that initially pops into my mind is, maybe there should be a competition not on sales, but on if you get a good review, say person X was a great server, and now I'm on Yelp and I have a good review. And now I could give some uh, adulation, some rewards to the people who are mentioned on Yelp. Now it doesn't help the folks in the back unless they say cooking folks are doing an amazing job. So that's what I mean by consequences right side up. The reward system seems a little bit backwards, and the not being paid for training and scheduling in half-hour increments, things like that. So why should I want to do a good job? Nothing's setting me up to want to do a good job. And then, do the people have the requisite skills that are needed? And it seems like yes, because that same group of high school and college students are working at probably every other restaurant there. So they do have the necessary skills and they're just not displaying them because, well, we can't come to a conclusion at this point, but we need to find out and ask questions. Why are they not using those skills? Are they capable? Absolutely, they're capable because they're doing it in every other restaurant around the area. So once again, we have to look at the questions. We have to dig in and find out what changed. Whoops. Was it, and what was a change? And we need to to do this, the last video I did was looking at the emotion behind the words. We really need to dig into that with Dave, because what's going on with, or Daniel, I don't know why I put Dave there, my apologies. Think of stress. Imagine if you own a restaurant, you were successful for 2 years, made big profits, have a big old mortgage now on your house. Family, everybody else is depending on you to bring home a good amount of money so you can keep that nice house, keep your nice cars, or just regular stuff. Doesn't even have to be great big stuff. But think of stress. So what's Dave thinking right now? He was successful. Now he's in danger of losing a business. What does that do to a person's ego? I'm a loser. I can't do this. I don't know what's going on. So he starts to second guess himself. Uh, from his comments about the training, he feels as though he's not being helped. So he doesn't want to take responsibility of his restaurant. It's somebody else's fault, somebody else's problem. Because I can guarantee you that other successful places that have that exact same training, if that training's not good enough, they're supplementing with something else. There's job aids for the cooking. There's all kinds of stuff. So there may be a mentorship program. What are other people doing that are successful? So that's the emotion that's underlying Daniel's thought process there. He's stressed out, afraid of losing his business, probably being hit at really hard in the ego, because when you have a successful business, you feel good. When you have a losing business, you feel stress. It is stressful. I've had a business that's fallen apart for multiple different reasons, and it is stressful. And the one thing that Daniel's doing here is he seems to be probably taking out on his employees a little bit. So that needs to stop as well. So we need to look at Dave or Daniel, and he probably feels like he does not know what to do because it was a success. Now it's not a success. I'm doing the same thing from his perspective, but guess what? He's feeling very insecure because he doesn't know what to do. Think of it like holding water in your hand. If you hold water in your hand, you can cup it and it can be there. But the tighter you squeeze that hand, if you have water in it, all that water comes pouring out. Just like a business, you need to support it. But if you start gripping too tightly, it just flies out of your hands and you actually lose control by trying to gain too much control. So think about all that's going on with Daniel. He's going through a ton of stress. And he probably feels that nobody wants to help, nobody cares, and he just keeps trying to hold on tighter and tighter and tighter to that business. And it's like he has blinders on, that he can't see the whole perspective, because everybody should want this business as much as he does. And that's simply not the case. Employees are not invested in the business simply because it's not theirs, but you can have them invest in the business with the right reward system, right consequences. So one thing that we can start doing is figure out how to get Daniel to think like he did when he started the business. I don't know why I put Dave in there. Sorry. When he started the business, we need to get him out of his rut. We need to shake him up a little bit. And to do that, we can ask him, hey, when you started, what was going well? Ask him what he did well. And I bet one of the big things that he does is treat his employees different, maybe even had a different reward system, or maybe it was just a really good time in the economy and you could make money and be a success pretty much no matter what you did. So that's always a possibility too. But we want to dive in and we want to get Daniel thinking about what he did prior or when he started the business and was successful. So now how do we link this to performance? So we haven't found any root causes yet, but we do know what we would like to change. The reviews online. So social media presence needs to be changed. Employee turnover needs to be changed, and profitability. Those are three key indicators that we need to approach and we need to purposefully change. because as um, to find out what we can do, first we're going to find out what changed. We talked about that, finding all that emotion underneath what Daniel's saying as well. We're going to start to get him to think, what does success look like? Give him a more purposeful approach, because I would bet with all this stress, he's not able to focus on anything long enough to make it good. So what does success look like? And in order for him to buy into what you are going to ask him to do, he needs to believe that it is his idea, or that it is something that he came up with. We want to give him the ownership of these ideas. And in turn, one way that I would do this would be to have him give employees a little bit of the ownership of the reward system. Get their input. Start talking. These discussions, usually when a business is in this much trouble, are hard at first, but it is like if you ever play tennis and you open up a tennis can and you hear all that pressure come out for the tennis balls, it's kind of like letting that pressure out. It first just needs to get out. So you have a first couple meetings during that week just to get it out, and then you can start making good progress. And this can happen fairly quickly if you're willing to absorb that initial I hate the way you run this business sort of feedback. So that can be done. So once we get through that, that takes a day or two, and we can get into what works. So get everybody looking to, what does success look like, rather than right now he's focused on, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose my business. How does he want employees to feel at work? How does he want to feel at work? Because I know I don't want to go into work feeling stressed out all the time, but uh, get Daniel to purposefully think about that. So now, with all that being said, those are a lot of questions and context. Um, I would set up metrics right away that had, just from this. Now I would gather more information by all those questions. I would have a metric set up with a reward system for social media right away. I would have social media feed going on where everybody could see it, and I would take the employee input, because it sounds like, depending on your employee or your customer base, the employees match the customer base pretty well. So I would get their input on what would work. And simply by getting feedback on what would work, guess what? You're making them a part of the process. So now they want the restaurant to be a success as well. It'll take a couple months to turn around, but it probably can turn around. So just my thoughts, not saying mine are right or anything else, just thought on how I would walk through the situation.